Tall kneeling military press. Start on your knees with kettlebell in the rack position. Squeeze your glutes and brace your abdominals. The upper arm is connected to the torso. The shoulders are pulled down and the neck is long. The kettlebell handle is below chin level. The wrist is straight and the elbow is under the kettlebell. Squeeze the kettlebell handle and make a fist with your other hand. Press the kettlebell overhead, keeping the shoulder down, the ribs tucked in, and the elbow moving through the front. Imagine as if you are pressing inside a chimney. Once in the overhead lockout, pause. The elbow is straight and the arm is as vertical as possible. The abdominals are braced and the glutes are squeezed. The ribs are pulled in and are not sticking out. The neck is long and both shoulders are pulled down. The armpit is pointing forward and the thumb is pointing slightly back. The kettlebell's body is hanging behind your arm, not over your head. Slowly reverse the movement until the kettlebell handle is again below the chin level and the upper arm is connected to the torso. The neck is long, the glutes are squeezed, and the abdominals are braced. Pause in the braced rack position before beginning the next rep. Your torso might slightly sway back and forward to accommodate the vertical path of the kettlebell. This is done without flaring the ribs or extending the lower back, but via movement at the knee joints and a slight upper back or thoracic extension. Use the GLAG-P acronym as a mental checklist before you press. G. Squeeze your glutes, keeping your hips open. L. Squeeze your lats, pulling your shoulders down. A. Squeeze your abdominals, pulling your ribs in. G. Grip the handle and make a fist with your free hand. P. Press and pause at top and bottom. Dismount with both hands on the handle. Here are 9 most common technique errors. Number 1. Flaring the elbow out to the side. This is a compensation move to make up for triceps weakness, and it puts the shoulder at a higher risk of injury. To ensure shoulder safety and to build up stronger triceps, keep your elbow pointed more forward than out to the side. At most, the elbow should track at a 45-degree angle from the center line of the body. Error number 2 is not pressing from the rack. In addition to the flared elbow, there is also a reduced range of motion, which weakens shoulders and triceps. To avoid this error and strengthen your muscles along their entire length, make sure that kettlebell handle ends below your chin at the bottom of every rep. Error number 3 is letting the arm internally rotate at the top, which will turn your armpit out to side and your thumb toward your head. This decreases shoulder stability and greatly increases the risk of shoulder impingement. To avoid this error, squeeze your armpit down and as you press, keep it pointing forward. Keep your thumb pointing at you during the press and slightly behind you in the overhead position. Avoid having the kettlebell hang over your head. Instead, the kettlebell should hang behind your arm. Error number 4 is letting the wrist get bent backwards. This weakens the press, destabilizes the overhead position, and increases the risk of wrist damage. To avoid this error, always keep your knuckles pointing up, as if punching the sky. Remember, there is no wrist in kettlebell training. Error number 5 is not pausing and moving too fast. Neglecting the pause at top and in the rack decreases the effectiveness of this exercise, reduces shoulder and tricep strength, and robs you of shoulder stabilizing and thoracic mobility benefits. Pausing helps improve muscle control along full range of motion, as well as shoulder stability. To make the most of the press, make sure to pause for at least 1 second in the overhead lockout with your arms straight and in the rack position with upper arm connected to torso. Error number 6 is side bending by flexing the lumbar spine. This is caused by lack of tension in the glutes and abdominals, plus as compensation for a tight thoracic and lats. Side flexion increases the risk of lower back trauma and reduces the effectiveness of the press. To avoid this error, squeeze your glutes and brace your abdominals, keeping your torso as stiff as possible throughout the press. A similar error, number 7, is flaring the ribs, arching the lower back and poking out the backside. This is a consequence of compensation for a tight thoracic spine and a lack of abdominal and glute tension. The result is a higher risk of lower back injury. To avoid this error, keep your ribs tucked in, brace the abdominals, and squeeze the glutes. If you lack thoracic extension, it is better to press slightly to the front, lean back at the knee joint, or press while reclining slightly against a support. The lumbar spine must stay neutral at all times. Error number 8 is heaving the kettlebell up using a forceful side bending and extending of the torso. This results from poor core control or from using a kettlebell that is too heavy. Heaving the kettlebell up by bending the spine vastly increases the chance of spinal injury and decreases the effectiveness of the press for shoulder and tricep strength. To avoid this error, use the GLAG-P checklist and consider using a lighter kettlebell. Finally, a similar error is number 9, flexing the spine forward to heave the kettlebell up. Any flexion of the lumbar spine under load leads to back injuries, and heaving the kettlebell up reduces the strength effectiveness of the press. To protect your spine and maximize the use of the press, use the GLAG-P checklist and consider using a lighter kettlebell.